franchise with 4 titles, 5 straight appearances at one point, 6 appearances total, 73 at 9, 2 MVPs, 3 Hall of Famers, and it comes to an end last night as a 10th seed in Sacramento. They got their ass kicked where they were outsized and they were outcoached. And it's just, you know, this is, again, the moments of not paying attention to bad habits, bad attitudes, big egos, enabling. And unfortunately, like, you know, a lot of great teams, it's kind of a lot like you watch Making the Band or Behind the Music. Most of even the greatest of bands usually end in kind of a dud. Athletes in sports is definitely in that category of this is just a long list and following the same kind of unfortunate closure of, you know, sometimes this is just how it ends up going. And this loss does signify for not just myself as a huge Warriors fan, but a lot of Golden State Warriors fans, we have to accept that this is probably at least a 90% chance that the big three is going to break up of Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson. And I, for one, you know, I'm glad I got to see it. It was a lot of fun, and it sucks that it ended the way that it did, but it does look like that it ended the way that it did. And just to clarify, though, let me say this before I get into what happened and why and what they need to do going forward. They weren't going to win. Let me just go ahead and take everything out your mind. For everybody that's curious about the rest of the NBA playoffs, because I'm no longer not, Boston and Denver are going to the NBA Finals. Who wins that is anybody's guess. But I'm telling you right now, Boston and Denver are going to be in the NBA Finals. You can go ahead and mark this down. Everyone else is going to have these cute stories. They're going to make the playoffs a lot of fun. But in the end, it's going to be Boston and it's going to be Denver. You know why? Because they're part of the 40-20 club. Boston and Denver are going to the NBA Finals because they're part of the 40-20 club. What is the 40-20 club? This was actually coined by Phil Jackson a long time ago. Basically, the metric is that you have to get to 40 wins before you get to 20 losses. 27 of the last 30 NBA Finals winners were actually teams that joined the 40-20 club where they got to 40 wins before 20 losses. There was only 4 teams in the NBA this year that actually pulled that off. It was Boston, it was Denver, it was Minnesota, and it was Oklahoma City. Now, Boston is the only one in the East, and they're the only real threat in the East. Unfortunately for Milwaukee and Philadelphia, they got injury issues. They were really their only threats. I don't put New York in that category. I don't think they stand a chance. Boston's going to the finals. Denver is one of 3 in the West at the 40-20 club. However, Minnesota and Oklahoma City, besides their inexperience, both have major injuries to major stars that they have to deal with, not to mention Denver's great home court record. So, I mean, as much as I'm sad about my team losing, it really doesn't matter in the end because after all was said and done and all the smoke cleared, it's going to be Boston and it's going to be Denver. The 40-20 club rule is going to continue to rule, and this is just kind of the way that's going to happen. So I would have liked to see them go on a longer run. I don't think they had any shot of winning the NBA Finals. But, I mean, you know, right or wrong, win or lose or whatever, this was not the way to go. It was kind of embarrassing. And it's sad for a franchise that really changed the game. And as I talk about the end of this era, let me just, you know, pontificate and reminisce a little bit here. They really did. They changed the game. I mean, you got to remember, this was, I played in the era, you know, I'm a dinosaur now, but I played, 20 years ago before they really hit their peak. It was just common knowledge that you can't shoot to win. You can't shoot a lot of three-pointers. You have to limit them. You have to only take them in the right scenarios. I would get benched if I shot one within 20 seconds of the shot clock. We had all these rules in college that I had to follow, and then, NBA and everybody else. And when the Warriors first started, it was the same thing. The idea was that, they're cute, but they'll never be able to win a championship because they shoot too many three-pointers. It's impossible to win that way, yada, yada, yada. They changed the game to where the same people who said that shit 5 or 6 years later, we're suddenly going, well, they're unfair. They hit too many threes. They can shoot from everywhere. They took the game, the entire NBA game, from where you can't shoot a lot of threes to win to where you have to shoot a lot of threes to win. They almost basically single-handedly pulled that off. That is something that is immortal, that is never going to ever be forgotten, and has changed the game forever. So let me at least give them that credit as far as, again, they changed the entire way we play, look at, and analyze basketball. And the other thing I want to mention, too, is just if you ever had a chance to watch them, and hopefully it's not over. I still think maybe, Klay and Steph, the Splash Brothers, can stay together. But I wanted to show you this video as I talk about this. This was actually from a Houston game where I got to go sit very close. If you ever had a chance to watch Steph and Klay warm up, you really got to appreciate greatness. In a way of trying to explain it, I always used the 1 in a billion example. Steph and Klay were the 1 in a billion, meaning that, let's say there's 8 billion people on this earth, give or take. So 1 of 8 picked up a basketball and attempted to shoot it at some point of their life, which I think is a pretty fair guess. I mean, let's say 1 of 8 people on average have at least picked up a basketball and attempt to put it through the hoop at some point in their life. Steph Curry and also Klay Thompson are the best out of all billion people that have attempted to do that. I want y'all to really let that sink in. You know, and you get to see it when you watch them warm up, and they just don't miss shot after shot after shot. They're like machines. They're like robots. They are literally the best out of a billion with a B. So when I got to go to games and watch them do stuff like this, as a former shooter, I'm just fascinated. And I appreciate it in the same that you should see when you see 1 in a billion things. You know, what if you got to watch Hendrix warm up and play guitar? What if you got to watch Mozart, you know, conduct a symphony? What if you got to watch Shakespeare write a sonnet? What, you know, do you get what I'm getting at? Like, that's the level that they operate on. They were the best out of a billion, and it wasn't disputed. And they were on the same team. And they won 4 titles, and they got the 5 straight, and they did it in a way that we've never seen it before, and probably, I don't think we'll really see again, as far as, like, they just lived and died by the shot, and they dominated you by the shot because they were the best out of a billion. They were the Hendrixes, they were the Mozarts, they were the Shakespeares, and they were on this is the Beatles, they were on the same team. This is like watching them shoot, watching them warm up. It's like watching the Beatles have a rehearsal, watching Paul McCartney, you know, play piano. That was the level that they operated on for over a decade and had a ton of success doing it. And god damn it, if this breaks up, if Klay does go, and there's a good chance after this last game Klay might go, if you never had a chance to have this opportunity to watch him, you missed out. You missed out on something special, because it's unbelievable to watch them just do what they can do at the level they do it. If you've ever tried to do it, it's hard to explain unless you tried to operate at a certain level of accuracy and efficiency. To then see them do something is like watching a superhuman or a robot or something. And this might be it. Klay might go. Now, look, I know that last game, not good. Obviously, 0 of 10. I'm talking about how great a shooter he was. He was 0 of 10. He was 0 of 6 on the three-point line. He looked absolutely terrible. He's a free agent, 34 years old. He's been very up and down and could command $30+ million a year. I still think you got to keep him. I still think, as far as going forward, you are still better off than you are without with Klay Thompson. I have other solutions. I have another part of that big three. You know, I'm going to get to you in a second here, that I think should go. But you don't break this up. You know, the Beatles found this out. You don't break up McCartney and Lennon. You don't screw this up. This is too beautiful. This is too special. This is still too effective. And if given the right adjustments, they would be just fine. Hopefully, you'll still get a chance to see it. Hopefully, Klay sticks around and they stay together. I'm telling you, this is like watching Hendrix warm up on a guitar. It was crazy to watch. All right, so like I said, Klay is a free agent. He is 34. He has been up and down. He could command a lot more money in the, you know, other parts of the world here. But I still say they need to keep him. And the good news is Steph has recently come out and say after the game, after their loss to Sacramento, that they need to keep him, that he doesn't see a life without him, which is phenomenal news, because basically what Steph says goes. The one thing that we know for sure, Steph Curry is going no effing where. That's the only thing we know as far as going forward with the Golden State Warriors. What's their future? Steph Curry is good. He's staying. That's fine. They listen to him. He says he wants Klay. And even Kerr, let me play this video. Steve Kerr afterwards, and they asked him about it too. You know, this is the big question. Is Klay going to go? Is Klay going to stay? If you can hit that for me, Corey. Klay, they asked him about, is Klay Thompson, do you want him? Do you need him? I love what Steve had to say here. Go ahead.
He's still got good years left. And I know I speak for everybody in the organization. We want him back. Obviously, there's business at hand, and that has to be addressed with Klay's representatives and, you know, Mike and Joe. But what Klay has meant to this franchise, as good as he still is, we desperately want him back.
And you should want him back. I mean, look, as much as people are ripping on him, and that last game was not the greatest thing, but don't let the last thing you see just completely, you know, screw up your memory. He was still averaging 18 points a game this year. He still shot about 40% from the three this year. He played 77 of 82 games. And I think that is one of the most slept on parts of this. You know, this guy who came off the Achilles and the knee and missed 2.5 years and couldn't play back-to-backs and all this other stuff. Yes, he's older. Yes, he's had a little more inconsistency, but he still has great moments. He's still one of the top 3 shooters in the entire league, and he played 77 games and played most of them very well, especially towards the end. And the bigger part of this, as I brought up Steve Kerr and I used his quote, if Steve Kerr would goddamn adjust, they could still goddamn win some goddamn games. Let me go ahead and go to this next picture. I brought this one up before, and I can't believe I have to do it again. Steve Kerr, your precious freaking hobbits. I swear to Christ, I have never been more frustrated with somebody who continually goes out of his way to use stats when they benefit him and ignore them when they don't. He is the king of this. He is small-minded, pun intended. He is obsessed. He's Gollum with his ring. He loves playing a certain way. He doesn't care when they lose. He doesn't care when it screwed things up. And when things work out his way, when his small ball works, he's the first one to jump to a plus minus or a metric or to point out, well, see, look at the stats. No. And then we have games of last night, and we have games like this season, and we have records and disappointments like we do this year. And suddenly he pretends he can't, he's illiterate. He can't read. He can't do anything. He's dyslexic. He has no clue what's effing going on. Steve Kerr is small-minded, and it killed us last night, and it killed us all year. Versus the Kings last night in that embarrassing loss, the worst loss since 2006. Just so you know, because he went small, they were out-rebounded offensively 15-8, which is just pathetic. If you saw the game, you saw just the difference there. The second chance points were 23-7 with 9 minutes left in like a 20-point game. So basically, most of the lead was created off of nothing but second chance points of offensive rebounds. And the only center that we did play, Kevon Looney, in the 9 whole minutes he allowed him to play, was one of 2 players on the entire goddamn roster that even had a plus-minus factor. I mean, it was just embarrassing. He just would not do anything about the size, as he hasn't done all year. This whole season, though, again, if he wanted to actually focus on a number, he can go to 2024 this entire season and look at the fact that they have been the second worst fourth quarter defensive team in the entire league, or that they are the third worst in the fourth quarter when it comes to field goal percentage at protecting the rim. And that has been the biggest freaking problem. In the fourth quarter, he abandons anybody like a Looney or a Saric or any sort of center whatsoever. He goes completely small. Defenders then, it's just, and don't let that little they get some defensive rebounding stat fool you. The problem is, if you ever watched any of their games this year, with those size issues, they have to double, they have to rotate, guys get out of position, then centers have to come out and try to block a three-point shot. The next thing you know, there's nobody under there to rebound. Then you're playing teams like Sacramento who are big, who are bullied you. They out-rebound you 15-8 offensively. They outscore you 23-7 on second chance points. They outscore you in the paint. They beat you up. They wear you down. And if you have an off night like Klay Thompson, Steph Curry did, you can't shoot your way out of the problem. The next thing you know, you lose way too early, and an era's ended sooner because this stubborn dickwad is just completely obsessed with just one way of doing basketball and one way only. The only reason we got away with a lot of this stuff this year is because Steph Curry was a miracle worker in the fourth quarter. Steph Curry, if you go look at the numbers, was once again one of the top scorers in the fourth quarter. He had the most clutch points of anybody in the NBA. He was able to miracle his way and shoot his way out of a lot of our problems. But the overall issue continues to be, and was last night, and it was all season, that against bigger teams, we struggle because we're the last team in the world that still thinks it's a good idea at center to play nothing but 6'7" and 6'8" guys against a bunch of 7-footers. It's mind-boggling after, not just this season, after losing FIBA, he's going to coach the Olympics this year, after blowing seasons over and over and losing to the same thing, that he is the definition of insanity, that he's able to repeat it over and over and still have the confounded face of like, oh, I don't know, we just didn't hustle down low. We didn't. You're too smart to be this full of shit. I'm sorry. And this is the other news flash I need for Steve and his precious hobbits and his small ball, is that all the other teams, by the way, none of them do this. All of the teams that contend do not play small. Look at the other top 6. So Steve Kerr's got his damn 2-year contract extension. Look at the top 6 teams this year going into the Western Conference that still have a chance to win the NBA Finals, or at least to make an appearance in the NBA Finals. It's Denver Nuggets, Oklahoma City Thunder, Phoenix Suns, LA Clippers, Dallas Mavericks, Minnesota Timberwolves. Not a one of them doesn't play or use multiple guys that are 6'10" or above. Denver has Jokic. Oklahoma City has Holmgren and all sorts of people. Phoenix has Nurkic. The Clippers have centers. Dallas just traded for Gafford, and they drafted Lively. Minnesota plays Gobert, the big 7'4" French guy, and Carl. They play Twin Towers. Those are the 6 teams that currently have a chance to win this year. Not a goddamn one of them is going small. And oh, by the way, do you want to know what our combined record was this year? Do you want to know what the Golden State Warriors combined record was against those top 6 teams that all play big? 4-19. They were 4-19 against anybody that had any size. Ask your girlfriend or ask anybody else. Size matters, all right? Unfortunately, you can't compete with something that's just much bigger than you. Eventually, they wear you down. Eventually, you have to go out of your way. You have to hustle. You have to ask for miracles. You have to look for greatness. You have to look for things that are almost impossible to stay consistent when the other team is able to just lean on you, be big, and out-rebound you and out-muscle you and get easy shots inside. And that is once again what happened this year in another blown season. I hate Steve Kerr, and I hate his way of thinking, and I hate the fact that he pretends he doesn't know this is a problem. It just happened again in the FIBA World Cup, where there was finally articles about it because it wasn't just Golden State Warriors' problem. It was the entire United States problem. This is, again, 4-19. They are 4-19 against those 6 teams. Denver, Oklahoma City, Phoenix, LA Clippers, Dallas Mavericks, Minnesota Timberwolves. They were 4-19. They lost last night getting out-rebounded. They lost against those teams getting out-rebounded. They all have bigs. The rest of the world is all using big people, and this dickwad still... It's annoying, Corey. It's not... It's like... Because he'll pretend. He'll look at stats and go, oh, see, stat. I think those are pretty effective stats, and I know he just will... Well, he's just, he's Steve. He's just going to go ahead and do it. The other issue. I'll let go of Steve. I can't do anything about it. They signed a 2-year extension. I don't know if he'll ever adjust to a 2024 offense. I hope so. I hope this year and having to break things up will maybe do something about it. Let me get to the other thing, and I've repeated this over and over, but let me put it up, the next one here, Corey, another picture. After Steve Kerr, when I look at whose fault it is for the Golden State Warriors, Draymond Green, this is all your fault. Anyone seen Good Will Hunting? Remember the whole, crescendo scene? It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. They hug at the end. Screw that. Push Draymond. This is all your fault. This is, once again, your fault. Robin Williams is staring at you, just completely disappointed, and so am I. Because, dude, you two are the most annoying human beings to try to deal with stubbornness and stupidity. And, I mean, this can go back. It was your fault when the 73-9 team that should have been the greatest team of all time, you got suspended Game 5, and then the comeback started. It was your fault, last year when you decided to sucker punch your own teammate Jordan Poole and team chemistry sucked the entire year. It was your fault this year when you missed 21 games on not one, but 2 separate suspensions combined, and in a Western Conference where if we would have won just 5 of those 21 games you missed, if we just would have won 5 of those where you were available, they would have gone from not being in 10th place all the way up to 4th place. Just 5 more games. That's how close it was this year, and that's how significant your stupidity was one more time. As much as you've helped win, you have helped lose. And I will, again, go back 73-9. I will go back to Jordan Poole last year. I will go to the 21 games missed this year where a 5-game win or loss difference could have got us all the way from 10th place to 4th place because you, as smart as you can be and as nice as you can be, when you see red, you can't keep your shit together. And it's just... If anyone's got to go, why do we keep talking about Klay? Why not Dre? What is this obsession with dealing with him? And I'm finally hearing rumblings, and thank God, because we have a new general manager, that maybe, the giant elephant in the room spitting peanuts and taking a crap in the living room floor, this has been our problem. He has consistently been, not to mention the fact that he's too short to play in today's league at center, as I pointed out already in my big and small rant there. But, I mean, it's just his attitude, his nonsense, is constantly doing as much detriment as he does do positive. Why don't we trade him? Even at a lower value, I think the solution for the Golden State Warriors is not to let Klay Thompson walk in free agency. I think it's to go ahead and trade him. Let's trade him, and let's trade Andrew Wiggins, who is a nice guy. But if you have to miss one more game because of personal reasons, and I don't want to be insensitive because I hear it's about family issues, but I got bad news for you. There's millions of people all around the country who have family issues that still have to go to work, that don't make the money that you make. It happened once, it happened twice. Dude, how many times can you just say, I don't want to go to work today because I have something sad going on? I love you. I hear you're a great guy, and God bless you, and prayers for your family. But if I could figure out a solution that doesn't involve having to get rid of Klay Thompson, one of the best 2 shooters I've ever seen, who's only 34 years old and played 77 games last year, I'm letting him go. I'm letting Draymond go, and I'm letting Wiggins go. They still have some years on their contract. Yes, you're not going to get exactly what you want back in value, but I think there's also some addition by subtraction here because Steph Curry's kind of in a toxic relationship with him. I mean, if you're at a boy who's or a girlfriend or anybody that's had a toxic partner that, you just can't seem to convince them as they're in it of like, bro, I know y'all have had some success, and I know some things have gone well, but I'm telling you, as somebody outside looking in objectively, you'd be better off without them. I was like, well, you don't know them like I do. They treat me different, and no, and I love them, and we have time together, and all the same bullshit you ever hear. And then finally, eventually, one of them does something crazy, and they all break up. And then like 6 months later, they finally go, damn, you know what? You were absolutely right. I'm doing 1,000 times better without this toxic person in my life. I think Steph Curry and Draymond Green is like his toxic girlfriend, because Steph still says, I still want him, I still need him. And I'm just like, again, I feel like the buddy who's got the girlfriend who I watched do God knows what a girls' night out a week ago. And he's like, no, you don't understand. If you get rid of this problem, it is addition by subtraction. He has been too many problems for too many years, and he will never learn. Got another highlight video on this. Draymond Green will never learn. He just won't do it. How many times do we have to see it? Like I said, he's helped them win some titles. He was crucial this year when he was available. But when they were 73-9 and they were up 3-1 in the finals, he got suspended for Game 5 and started the comeback because he couldn't stop kicking people in the dick. Just last season, sucker punched his own teammate. Cost him basically the whole year. The chemistry was never the same. This year, with the 21 missed games because of not one but two different suspensions, they ended up, being at the 10th place. They won 5 more games of those 21. They're all the way up to 4th. And by the way, was still acting out. Even after 2 suspensions, even after therapy, even after all the problems he caused before, he was still acting out to the point to where Steph Curry's like crying on the court. Klay shaking his head of like, dude, we just don't know what to do with this freaking guy. Enough's enough, man. If we're going to get rid of anyone, we're going to do anything about anybody, let's please get him out of here, and let's see if we can get Steve Kerr to finally get over his obsession with putting guys that are small at center. This would actually be beneficial in both ways, because if Draymond's gone, it takes away the temptation to put Dre at the 5 spot. It gives room for Kuminga, Trace Jackson-Davis, and without with a trade, just getting some sort of decent big in who doesn't have attitude problems. I think you can see a Warriors team that still has a couple years left. Obviously, I think what's going to happen most likely is that they're all going to stay. I hope this isn't the end of an era. Maybe this is just the fan with my fingers crossed. But I think if we had to have a solution to where Klay Thompson doesn't go, with all the money and all the salary cap situations, here's the easiest way to put it. Basically, you're going to have to cut Chris Paul, which sucks, but he can speed walk his way somewhere else. You trade Draymond Green and Andrew Wiggins. You make room for Kuminga. You keep Looney and Gary Payton II. You sign Klay Thompson to a hopefully somewhat team-friendly deal in the 20s, millions of dollars, somewhere around there. That leaves us enough room and money to get at least a decent big $15 to $20 million who can bring the Warriors offense and Steve Kerr into 2024, where bigs can play small, and he'll finally have to adjust, and then that'll actually open up rim protection. That'll open up shots for Steph and Klay. It'll solve a lot of problems. I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm kind of just ranting here at this point, but it's the end of an era, and I'm very sad about it, because all this could be a moot point. Klay could be gone, and it could be an entire disaster, and a lot of this was Steve Kerr and Draymond's fault, as I've screamed I don't know how many times. It's crazy how much I have to keep going back to the same 2 topics, but god dang it.